Hello, everybody. Hi, Hiram. Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
Hey, Ali.
Hey, welcome. So we've got lots of folks getting logged in, so we'll give it just a few seconds here while we get some folks here on the webinar. So I always like to test our audio and make sure everyone can hear us okay. And we'll get started with the Q&A. If someone can just throw in the chat or the Q&A if they can hear us okay, that would be fantastic. Let us know when you're calling in from. Let's see who jumps in first. Jordan. Excellent. Everyone can hear us. That's always a good start to a webinar. Well, thank you all for being here. We'll just give it a few more seconds since I see lots of folks getting logged in. And Daniel and Hiram, thanks for being here today. Excited to chat with you all about maybe some alternative conversation around how people approach investing. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent. Good stuff. So as people are getting logged in, let's be conscious of time. Just a couple of housekeeping items before I get my screen shared and we properly introduce ourselves. We will be recording today, so that's always one of the most popular questions for those that cannot be here today, or maybe if you have to leave early, maybe you have colleagues that couldn't join you, we will be recording. You can always access later on. I'm finding a lot of times recently that people are kind of taking webinars and approaching them a little bit like podcasts and listening to them whenever they want. So we love that ability and the flexibility of it. So yes, we will record. And the other most popular question that I love to cover in the beginning is, can you ask questions? And I think I speak for Daniel and Hiram and myself when I say yes, of course. If you have a great question that you would like to throw our way, I'm going to probably stop maybe halfway through and see if we have any good ones. And then also, of course, at the end when we're letting you know how you could contact our companies and find out more. So please, think of those questions that might be really valuable as you see the sessions going on, and make sure you ask us because we want this to be interactive and valuable for everybody. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen quickly just to make sure everybody knows what's going on here, and we'll get started. So this is us. I will go ahead and introduce myself first and then pass it to my esteemed presenters. I'm Allison Susko, Vice President of Community and Partnerships over at AssetMap. I'm working on my 8th year here at AssetMap, and I've always been in kind of the fintech space. So I started out my career over at eMoney Advisor, spent some time at DocuPace Technologies, and have been at AssetMap ever since. So it's really been an amazing journey through fintech, and it's really one of my favorite topics. So if you ever just want to, shoot the breeze on technology and financial services, I'm your gal. I love it, and super excited to be here today to talk about, again, a little bit of a different approach around investing and how AssetMap, UI Charitable, and Orion can work together to make sure that your clients have that need covered as well. Maybe thinking beyond just rates of return or taxes around their investments, but what's most important to them and what kind of purpose do they have when it comes to their investing, and some tips around that. So definitely a great, exciting topic today. And that being said, I'm going to pass it over to my friend Daniel Crosby to introduce himself as well, and then Hiram can do the same. So Daniel.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hey, everyone. Daniel Crosby. Daniel Crosby with Orion. I am the Chief Behavioral Officer over at Orion, which means that I am the psychologist and the behavioral finance guy. So I head up our advisor educational arm called the Orion Advisor Academy. And happy to be here with some of my favorite folks in the industry. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. And Hiram?
Yeah, my name is Hiram Grenny. I'm the Director of Partnerships over at UI Charitable. So I manage all of our current relationships with financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys, anybody looking to help clients with charitable planning, whether it's through donor advised funds or other charitable vehicles. I manage that partnership and then work on new partnerships as well.
That's fantastic. So we're going to start out with a little chat here, and I'm actually going to stop sharing because it's more of maybe a panel style we can kind of think about here in the beginning. And, just to give you some insight as to how this webinar got kicked off for today, one of Hiram's colleagues, Sarah, and I were chatting about, really just Asset Map and UI Charitable, and how, there really are some things that happen within client meetings, prospect meetings that maybe aren't as traditional as just finding out what exactly a client wants to do with their money from a monetary standpoint. What else is important to them? What else is important to their family? And, just as a bit of background, that's really something that Asset Map takes pretty seriously. We really believe that what's important to the client, whether it be family related, investment related, what's their future look like, what's really important to them, is really just as important as just the basics when it comes to investing and planning around financial planning. So find out more about that person, what's important to them. That does nothing but improve the relationship, really get something great going between the advisor and the client, gets the whole family involved, everyone who matters to their financial life. And it really just brings, just great things all around for both sides of that relationship. So we believe very strongly in having maybe more than just the traditional finance conversation at Asset Map, because it allows you to uncover so many things that you might not know otherwise, and really builds that relationship. And our CEO and founder, Adam Holt, has really made that part of his mission around Asset Map from the start. So, and I'll let Hiram kind of explain more from the UI charitable side, but as you would imagine, just based on his introduction, that's something that obviously they take very seriously as well, and certainly Daniel and the Orion community. So it seemed like a no-brainer to get the three of us together, because not only are all of our firms taking this approach seriously and working it into the conversation, but also the technology between our three firms speak together as well. So UI Charitable and Asset Map both have really great integrations with Orion that can actually connect all three of us. So it seemed like a no-brainer to get all this information out to our attendees today. And that's really how, we got this event started. Hiram, did you have anything you'd want to add to that from your perspective as well before we interview Daniel a bit and get his perspective?
No, I think we jump in. I'll cover it later. Let's get to the exciting stuff with Daniel.
All right, that sounds good to me. So we are, again, thrilled to have Daniel here. And the first question we have, Hiram and I have a couple questions. And again, get your questions in as well that we might be able to address at the end. But, obviously, Daniel, you spend a lot of time studying the psychology of wealth. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have around money specific to their happiness?
So I think where people get it wrong with money and happiness is thinking about it in an overly binary way. I mean, there's certainly people who think it's everything, and there's people who think it's not good for much, and the reality is a little more complicated than that. We know that money and happiness, it's not nothing, because we see that at low levels of wealth, it's kind of miserable. And a lot of this has to do with just physical pain, right? It's not fun to be cold or hungry or sick, and money does a good job of sort of buying you out of misery. But among people with high levels of wealth, we see that they're not universally happy, and there's about 15 to 30% of people who are unimpacted by wealth, and it doesn't really do much to move the needle of their happiness. So at a certain level of wealth, it's more about how you spend it, how you spend, save, and invest it. And there's a couple of ways that reliably buy us happiness. One, the one we're here to talk about today, is by giving it away. Giving away money is a huge boost to happiness. Also, buying experiences over things, spending time with people that we love, and getting out of work that we hate. The money that I pay the high school kid to mow my lawn every August in Atlanta is like money well spent, right? Like, to get me out of that horrible job, that is a true boost to my happiness. The final comment that I'll make here is that when we look at personal fulfillment, personal wellness, the best predictor of this is the strength of our relationships. Are we loved? Like, are we giving and receiving love? And so when you look at this from a money and happiness perspective, if you look at something like buying a car doesn't on average give you a very large boost in happiness. It's a very big ticket item, and it has very limited sort of impact on your happiness, unless the research shows you buy a car to join a car club. Because if you buy a car to join the Porsche Club of North Atlanta, now you've got some buddies to hang out with on Saturday, folks to drink coffee with, to talk shop with. Those folks have a a heightened and sustained boost in happiness. So
Mm.
any way that we can spend money to improve relationships boosts happiness a lot.
But it really has nothing to do with the car at all in the
No.
situation you just said, which is really interesting. That's a diminishing returns thing with the car. Everyone's excited in the beginning, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, this is just like the car I was buying. The car I was driving 3 weeks ago. After a while,
Yeah.
it's really funny. Hiram, what question would you like to ask Daniel around this topic?
Yeah. Building off of that, I think when it comes to giving away your money, oftentimes we look at it in a binary way as well. We look at it that people do it all for the tax benefits. And then on the other side of it, you have the altruistic reasons. And it kind of seems like we're choosing one or the other. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you think about that? Is it typically one or the other? Should we think of it in a binary way that it's one or the other? How do you see that?
There's certainly nothing wrong with wanting to save money on taxes. I wish I had done a little bit more of that a couple weeks ago. I got took quite a hit. So there's nothing wrong with that, and we know that financial incentives drive behavior. But one of the things that I wrote about in my book, The Soul of Wealth, is that good things happen when we couple money and meaning. To talk about this from an investment perspective, people with named accounts, Morningstar looked at people with purpose-driven accounts, sort of named accounts that it's like Ali's retired to the Bahamas fund instead of Ali fund ABC 123. The meaning-based funds had 15% more wealth than the non-meaning-based funds, right? People in another study were 10 times less likely to go to cash in a volatile market if their funds were named, and they were dramatically more likely to save for retirement. So there's some magic in pairing money and meaning. And I see the same thing happen philanthropically. When we can recouple this act of giving with something that's a little deeper and a little more foundational than just trying to stick it to Uncle Sam, then I think good things happen. And it just feels like it sits a little deeper in the person and it's more consistent with who they are, who they want to be, rather than just trying to avoid a negative.
Mm.
Do you think that advisors commonly are talking to their clients about maybe purposeful investing, or is this becoming more and more common, or do you find that it has to be the client that is kind of bringing this up? Which direction does that tend to happen in a meeting, as far as you see?
So anecdotally, I feel like it's advisor by advisor. I mean, there's some advisors who sort of lead with values-based investing and giving almost to the exclusion of everything else. And then there's advisors who say, "Oh, my clients don't want this." And what I find is that when I hear that from these folks, more commonly, what I'm hearing is, "Well, your clients don't know that this exists," right? Like I think a lot of times when people are not bringing values into the conversation, the clients, who aren't always super well informed on this, they don't even know that these are options, that you could marry up your values with the way that you invest, the way that you give, the way that you plan in a meaningful way. I don't think that a lot of people know that that exists. I think more people would opt in if they knew it was available in a way that would, still lead to good financial outcomes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think there's that objection for advisors that my clients aren't interested in this, they don't really care. And then the other one is from a more practical perspective, how do I talk about this? I mean, this is a topic that I haven't breached very often. I know that this emotional fulfillment matters with their investing, whether it's philanthropically or just in general, joining a car club rather than buying a car. But how can advisors comfortably bring these conversations up? Do you have any suggestions from an interaction perspective?
Yeah, a few things. A few things. We know from the research that a majority of what gets communicated to people is nonverbal. And so I think you have to kind of get comfortable with this yourself, or else you telegraph your disdain or your discomfort for the conversation to the people that you're serving. And the conversation's going to go in that predictable direction. I think that a lot of times you want to have these conversations sort of obliquely because I don't think that people have maybe given this direct thought. Like I spoke with a friend recently who had had a big exit, and I basically said, hey, what are you going to do for, what are you going to do for charity? And he was like, oh, I don't know. Like I haven't thought about it. And I think a lot of times we have to take a more indirect and a more emotional path. So what I mean by this is asking one of the following questions. One would be around legacy, right? Like, okay, how do you want to be remembered? What's the impact you want to have on the world? I think that is a question that is much more personal, much more visceral for the average person than, hey, what's your favorite charity, which is sort of a different question and one they may not have vetted to their satisfactorily. I think even more powerful than that is to use the power of story to say, hey, tell me about a time when you were moved by an act of giving or moved by an act of charity or generosity, or when someone did something, beautiful or meaningful for you, and how did that impact your ability to accomplish the things that you were able to accomplish. So I think that narrative, story, personal values, and sort of the legacy and the impact that people want to leave are indirectly direct paths to this conversation that are going to get better responses from advisors than just like, hey, who do you want to give money to?
Yeah, great suggestions.
Um, so specific to technology, how do you think tools like Asset Map or otherwise maybe other financial planning tools can help support this kind of mission of value investing? How are you seeing technology work into it?
So one of the, to introduce sort of a shrink term here, one thing that we're always looking for in trying to shape human behavior is something called salience, which salience is just the vividness or the ease with which you can envision something.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, as a human race, we're really good at visualizing bad stuff. That's why in choppy markets like the one we're in now, like people get scared because, if you say, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Like people really have a pretty good answer for that usually. And one of the things that we as a profession have to get better at doing is using technology to help people visualize a beautiful future, to visualize impact. And I think that that's one of the things that technology like Asset Map can do really well, is to say, hey, this is how we could help you visualize the impact of this. In The Soul of Wealth, I wrote about the power of visualization. A lot of times as an industry, again, we stop short and we say, hey, what's your goal here? And you say, well, I want to, retire to Aspen. And they go, okay, well, we stop there and we go, okay, what does a house in Aspen cost? And let's figure it out. Let's run the numbers. There's richness in the visualization because the studies that I cited in the book show that, like, hey, you don't stop with, hey, I want a house in Aspen. You say, well, what kind of trees are you going to have on the property? Where are you going to drink your coffee every morning? Like, where are you going to hike with the grandkids? What are you going to do? What kind of animals are you going to see there? Like, getting into the vividness of the beauty of the vision, the vividness of what's to come makes people dramatically more likely to behave financially, and to be able to prepare for that brighter tomorrow. So that's where I think that the tools like Asset Map get so good, is to just show people that impact in a practical way.
That's a good segue. So we're going to talk a little bit about the technology here for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to just share a couple screens on setting the stage for Asset Map. So here's the game plan. I'm going to show you all around, really in one particular use case of how we decided it would be a really great way that you could actually work this into your conversation with your clients using tools like Asset Map, Orion, and UI Charitable. So instead of going in and saying, all the great and wonderful things that Asset Map might do, I'm going to stick to kind of the game plan today on what we're talking about. But to give you a little context, we are a financial planning tool, but to Daniel's point, we really focus in on the visualization of the family, the household, and sticking to the approach of, are you making good decisions? Things are going to change. Things are going to change frequently in the market. Things are going to change when it comes to how much you're saving, life events that might happen. But are you on track to meet those goals that mean so much to you, like that house in Aspen? And let's look at it in more of a kind of visual manner, a conversational matter, as opposed to just sticking to the numbers. And the purpose behind that is Adam, our CEO, found that when he created Asset Map and people are looking at the visualization of their entire household, and I know it's a little small over here on the left-hand side, but you'll see client, spouse, grandma, maybe she's reliant on you financially to some extent. Maybe this family is paying for college for their niece and nephew. Potentially they're business owners. Maybe they have a few trusts that are included in their finances. That can all be visualized in the meeting with the client and spouse. And what does that do? Builds the relationship. It gets the important family members involved. Maybe it introduces you to future generations that you might want to work with. And all of this is happening because we're bringing it down to a visual conversational level, as opposed to relying on complex charts and kind of proving out the math. We really believe that math is pretty ubiquitous. Everyone can do math. You can do math on a spreadsheet if you need to. So making a situation really consumable in a meeting by a client, whether it be virtually or in person, has really proven to be just phenomenal for the advisors that are either starting up a new relationship, like I'll show you today, when they're fact finding, or going in, every year, every 6 months, whatever your cadence is with a client, and finding out what's changed, what's most important to them. And what ends up happening is they see this as their family, this structure that makes up their whole financial life, and they're more forthcoming. They understand what you're talking about because they're able to visualize it right on the screen, as opposed to trying to come up with something from, a balance sheet that lists out numbers. It just changes the conversation in a very positive way, leading to a lot of times a very quick, well-built relationship right from the start, because the advisor is getting permission to ask the most important questions based on what the client has on their asset map. We've got lots of features that are going to support this, from ways to see where you have opportunities out there, where there might be gaps in their plan, and the ability to say in a pretty quick but concise way, hey, you're on track for your goals. Based on these few scenarios, you're on the right track. Let's not get down to the minute number. Let's really see that you're making good decisions and staying on track regardless of what's happening around you. So very, very important. There's been some new features that we've rolled out too that are really cool, that support things like almost a family tree. So, we've had so many requests over the years. You map out the assets so nicely. I want to see what happens with this family generationally. Or I want to see if I were to make a little tweak or two to the asset map report, but I want my client to let them know. I want my client to let me know if that's in their game plan before I just change it on them. Are there ways to kind of tweak this and propose things? So we're really listening to you all and your feedback on what's most important when you're presenting asset map in these meetings. So let's use this use case. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about Charlotte Bridge and John Locke, and I'm going to create them into asset map. And we're going to talk about how this might be a situation where it's a new client or prospect. They've never been loaded up into asset map before. And we're going to find out a little bit about them, specific to maybe how they feel about the future, how they feel about investing. And then I'm going to pass it over to Hiram to talk about how his company can do the same and support these conversations. So let's go ahead and add a household into asset map. And we're going to show you two things. How can we find out more about the needs and the wants around charitable investing? And also, how can I find out from the client before they even come into the meeting what that's all about? And let's link Orion over, which could even include UI Charitable Investments. So really, really cool stuff here that I can show you. So you're going to notice here that we have a lot of great integrations. Of course, today we're going to be focusing on Orion's, but before we do that, I'm going to show you our discovery platform. Super, super easy. This is the experience that your client is going to have, or your prospect, when they get loaded up into asset map, if you ask them to do so ahead of time. Imagine you're meeting with client in a week. You don't know a whole lot about them quite yet, or their spouse. You're going to send them a quick and easy link to find out more about them before they come in. So we're going to say this is for John Locke, and we're going to go ahead and initiate an interview for him. We can send him a link. We can shoot it to him in an email. But again, the idea is let's find out about this couple before they come into the office next week. So it leads to some really valuable questions, really valuable conversation before they even maybe meet for the first time. So let's all put our client hats on. That's what I like to say. This is our client, John Locke. And now let's pretend him and Charlotte are sitting in their living room. They're on the iPad and they're going to tell the advisor, Daniel, a little bit more about themselves before that meeting next week. So we're going to just keep it simple. No making fun of my spelling or my typing while I'm doing this. We got John Locke, and you're going to see how client friendly this is. Let's make John 42 and save. We're going to add his partner, Charlotte. So we've got Charlotte, and her last name is Bridge. She's female, and she's also 42, and save. So we know this about them at this point. We're going to tell them they're doing great along the way. They can add kids if they have kids. Again, anyone who matters to them financially could be loaded in. But let's just say for today's purposes, it's just John and Charlotte. And we're going to say, okay, tell us a little bit more about yourself. So they're going to say, okay, yeah, we both have jobs. We own a house together. We have bank accounts, a couple investments, some insurance policies, and a mortgage. And we're going to hit next or continue. Now, at this point, Asset Map's going to say, okay, great. Now tell us a little bit more about those items. So I'm just going to fill out a few of these here so you can get the point. But we've got John, and we're going to say John is an exec, and he makes $250,000 a year and save. And we're going to say that Charlotte, you can see this is super simple, doesn't take long, is a professor, and Charlotte makes $175,000 a year and save. So we could say that's it. That's all their income. We could add more if they're, if they have some side gigs, we can add that in. Whatever the situation is would work just fine. So we're going to say that they also own a house, and we're going to say that's in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and it's worth $400,000. All right. And we're going to hit done. And let's just do a couple more. Let's add in an investment. We're going to say this is John's, and this is his non-retirement account, and this is at Citi, and it's worth 210, whatever you want. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking my clients could definitely handle this. And what we're doing behind the scenes is we're actually creating that asset map report from the client's perspective. Advisor is going to get a notification to review it. And it's very, very great insight into that first meeting, as you can imagine. So if they don't fill everything out, that's okay. We're going to let them complete as much as they're comfortable with. And if they don't fill out this loan or liability or this insurance policy, maybe they're not sure of exactly what's going on with that insurance. They can hit continue. It'll actually put a placeholder on the asset map to let the advisor know, let's ask them about that because they didn't tell us exactly all the details about what they said they had. We're going to tell them good job. We're going to hit continue. And now these are the cool parts that I wanted to show you that's going to give you even additional insight. What else is on your mind? What else is on your mind is not necessarily needed for running a financial plan, right? Not on the numbers, but it's really good to know what their priorities are, what their goals are before they even come meet with you. Let's see if it's even going to be a great fit between you and that client. So we're going to say retirement planning is important, contributing to charity. So you already know they're interested in that. And also providing a legacy, and hit continue. Now, this is really my favorite part. Can you help me with charitable investing? Thank you. The client or prospect can actually come in here and say, wow, this is really something that isn't loaded up into Asset Map. It's not something that they're asking me directly, but I have a need as a potential client of yours that I really want to let you know about before that meeting. And all done. Really, really cool stuff. There are also ways that you can load in your own questionnaires if you have custom questions you like to ask clients, because again, we really want to focus in on that relationship and what's important to them and building a great rapport right off the start. So I'm going to jump back into Asset Map. So now I'm back on the advisor side. Put your advisor hats back on. And I should have a new household built. It's the Locke household. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And it's going to take me over to what the client created. Okay. So there's going to be a few things that I want to note. And then I'll show you how easy it is to load up Orion on the other side to help you fill this out. Client told us that they're making $250 a year. We've got Charlotte making $175. They told us they have an insurance policy, but it looks like they didn't fill it out. Let's ask them about that in the meeting, jot a note down, and make sure that we're finding out exactly what they have going on. All of these placeholders, again, are reminding us that the client said they have something else, but they didn't provide that detail. So we can find out later on. If I click up on the lock household and I hit edit, it's going to keep a note here for me on the right-hand side. Discovery comments. Can you help me with charitable investing? So in that notification you're going to get from that household being built, it's going to remind you, hey, go in and check the notes and make sure that they didn't freeform anything in here for you to make sure that you know leading up to that meeting. So now I already know, wow, this person really wants to dig into charitable investing a little bit. I'm going to make sure that's part of my conversation. But what's really, really cool before I turn it over to Hiram for showing us exactly how UI Charitable can support this is, let's make sure we enable that Orion integration. The Orion Asset Map integration has been launched for, gosh, I think close to a decade. It was one of our first integrations. It's going to pull in everything you have housed over at Orion right into Asset Map to save you time, less data entry. If it's coming in from UI Charitable, it's going to be a full circle moment, right? You're able to talk to your clients about what's important in that aspect, and then also load in the investments that you've gotten set up through UI Charitable that flow into Orion. Very, very cool stuff. So let's see if we have anything out here for John Locke that we can pull in. I've searched for Locke up in our integrations area. The Asset Map team can always walk you through how to do this. Super, super simple. I can import it. I can connect it over to John. That way we're not double counting the client. Import. Let's get anything he has loaded into Orion right into that Asset Map report. And let's see if we have anything for Charlotte. I'm going to actually search by her first name. You can search however you like, or you'd think I could. Let's try Bridge. All right, I must have spelled it wrong. So we have Bridge, and I'm going to connect that over to Charlotte and also hit import. So now, whatever matches up for, in this case, Orion, whether it be a UI Charitable account or an account from another portfolio, from another custodian, it's all going to come right into Asset Map. Can come back into that household, and we've got some new investments loaded up. It looks like we have a IRA for John. If I pop that up, you're going to see, oh, okay, we've got the value in here. We can see some history for that account. Really, really cool stuff coming into Asset Map from Orion, where I can even check out some performance summaries. Maybe you don't want to do the performance summary these days, but you can absolutely come in and check out some documents, holding summaries. All of that is going to be part of your integration with the Orion platform. And certainly we hope that you're pulling in some investments from UI Charitable as well, just to, again, kind of keep this coming full circle. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to allow Hiram to tell us a little bit more about his platform.
Yes, thank you, Allison. That was a great look at Asset Map and how this all fits together. I'll share my screen here. Just like how Allison explained, their vision at Asset Map of giving you a holistic view of your client's situation, including going a little bit beyond the financial situation. And we align really well with that, of course, because at UI Charitable, we're doing all kinds of philanthropic planning. We do everything. I mean, the primary tool that we use is donor advised funds, but we do all kinds of different charitable planning. And for advisors, a lot of times the question I get asked is, okay, so why do I care? I mean, Asset Map's showing me all of these different things about a client. They wrote a note, they care about charitable planning. What does this actually do for me as the advisor except use more of my time? And the interesting thing, and I would love to have follow-up conversations with some of you about this, but there's more and more data being published about just how much those charitable conversations mean to clients and just how much it deepens that relationship. Just as Daniel told us earlier today, they care about the emotional fulfillment side of things, and it means a lot more to them than their investments performing well. Even though it seems like there's a spark of happiness when investments do well, our core happiness comes from something deeper than that. It comes from relationships. It comes from meaning. And when you have these conversations with clients about their passions, what they really care about, that relationship deepens, and actually advisors see that they onboard more assets. They are larger firms. They see more success in growing their business. They get a much higher rate of referrals and higher quality referrals. And so the biggest compliment you can get as an advisor or any service provider is, hey, you've been so great to me that I want you to meet my brother or my sister or whoever it is. And so the charitable conversations matter. And that's just kind of the foundation of all of this, is if you want to grow your business and you're looking for new ways to prospect and new ways to drive that growth, charitable planning is a great place to start if you're not doing it already. And at UI Charitable, we focus largely on donor advised funds. Our goal is make charitable giving easy. Help your client get from beginning to end of their charitable goals in a seamless, quick, easy way. And donor advised funds can do that a very high percentage of the time. So this will be a review for a lot of you, but anyone not familiar with donor advised funds or DAFs, they basically allow your client to separate the timing of their tax deduction from the timing of their actual giving. There's two transactions that occur. Donor makes a donation to a donor advised fund account, which is always owned under a nonprofit organization. So there's a nonprofit, public 501c3, and it owns all of these sub accounts that are DAFs. And a client can make a donation to one of these DAFs, get an immediate tax deduction, and then you as the advisor can manage that DAF and invest it and grow it tax-free until your client then decides to send it to their favorite charities. So it's great because it preserves that optionality. Get a tax deduction now, decide what you're doing with it later. Or even if they know what they're doing with it, grow it tax-free for now, and then make distributions at your leisure. So they're really flexible, really easy to work with. They can be set up in a day or two and preserve that optionality for your client. So jumping into UI Charitable and the way that we view DAFs, like I said, our goal is let's make charitable giving as easy as possible. We saw, and many of you might not know this, but there are many DAF providers out there. The most well-known ones, of course, are Fidelity and Schwab Charitable. Those are DAFs that are attached to a custodian. There are a lot of independent DAFs too that offer different types of services and do kind of different things a little bit. And it's a landscape that's actually changing really quickly. It's changing and adapting, and we've tried to be at UI Charitable an innovator in that space to say, how can we offer a DAF that's as flexible as the IRS allows? Let's do this in a way that your clients, however they want to fund that DAF, however they want that DAF managed, and however they want to make distributions out of that DAF, that they can accomplish all three. So we talk about it in those three buckets where we try to add flexibility. One is funding the DAF, contributing a wide variety of assets. Two is the control that you keep as the advisor, being able to manage these DAFs. And three is making distributions out of the DAFs to charity. And you'll notice back on this slide, I very intentionally put charitable purpose organization because what your clients can do charitably is not just limited to public nonprofit organizations, not just 501c3s. And we'll come back to that a little bit. But part one of this, and I'll just give you kind of the 50,000 foot view, and then we can have follow-up conversations after. But our goal was to really thrive in the complexity. A lot of clients will donate cash and public securities, and that covers their needs really well. They get the deduction they need, and they can do their giving. That's great. What we really specialize in is the more non-traditional assets as well, whether that's a client selling a business or selling real estate. They have cryptocurrency holdings from years ago, and they have these huge gains they're facing. They can donate a portion of, or all, of any of those assets to a DAF, and then when that asset sells, fund their giving with it. So they're going to get that same capital gains benefit along with the income tax deduction and have money in this charitable account to fund their giving. And we have processes and make it really simple and easy and cost effective, really, for clients to donate whatever asset makes the most sense for their charitable giving and for their tax strategy. We're going to be able to accept that asset. So that's part one. Part two, and it's very relevant to the advisor, is how do I manage these things? I want to keep these within my management. A lot of you maybe have recommended DAFs to clients, and when you do, the client goes, sets it up, and that's now out of your management. You lose those assets. So you're doing this good thing, it's altruistic, but you're losing assets at the same time. You're kind of swimming upstream. So we've tried to create a solution where regardless of the balance in the DAF, and regardless of where you custody that DAF, you remain the advisor on that account from the first dollar that goes in. You can use any custodian you'd like. Whatever you use typically to custody your assets, you can use for your donor advised fund accounts. You can manage it the same way, charge your fee, and make whatever types of investments you want. So really, in summary, this is a plug and play account that's going to look and feel like any other account. It's designed to look and feel like it's a non-DAF account, even though it will be a DAF account. And there are some mechanics that go into that. I can explain how these accounts are set up, but the goal is that you retain these assets, you continue managing them for clients, and it continues to motivate you on a number of different levels to recommend DAFs to clients and have these charitable conversations. This should be a full loop where you recommend it to the client, you continue reporting on it to the client, and then you see the results of it with your client. That's the goal. And so we've set up the accounts in a way that allow that to happen. And lastly, what gets us most excited at UI Charitable is what you can do philanthropically, what you can do charitably with these DAFs. And the reality is, I said earlier that the transaction from DAF to charitable purpose organization is named that specifically for a reason. And that's because you can give to a lot more than just 501c3s. Most clients will just probably give to their favorite 2 or 3 charities. That's the reality. They have their church, they have their school, whatever it is. They know what they want to give to a lot of times, and they love giving to it, and that's great. We'll support that. But especially with higher net worth clients, they get a little more creative. They have different types of geographies they want to fund. They may want to make a for-profit investment in a company that's doing some type of impactful work in the world, and that company might be in Ghana. And so how can I get money from my DAF after I got a tax deduction to this organization in Ghana that might even actually be an equity investment or a debt investment? There's all kinds of really cool structures you can do with DAFs around the world or just grant making inside the US. Our goal is to be a high-touch philanthropic service where your clients set the strategy, we help them execute. And so if they want to get more creative, they can. If they want to make grants to their favorite charities, they can do that as well. And to Allison's point about the integrations, we've tried to set ours up in a way that makes all of this that I just explained really easy by leveraging technology. And we've done that with Orion as well. We have this is our UI Charitable online portal. uicharitable.org is our website, and you can go to sign in and it pulls up this page. We have this login with Orion button, which is a single sign-on. It works just like the login with Google button on other third parties, where you can click login with Orion, use your Orion credentials, no need to enter information, create a new account. You're just logging in with your existing credentials, and it actually pulls in a bunch of data from Orion. As you'll see here, these are accounts existing in Orion for this advisor, where they can come in, see all of their accounts, and then easily invite them to create DAFs by just clicking add client. So, and on top of it, allowing it to be really simple for you to invite them, your client then gets an email, clicks the link, and they're not entering any of their information because that's all pulled in from Orion. All they're doing is logging in with their same Orion credentials, and now they have a DAF. So really quick, really easy, seamless for you to open these accounts, and then a world of possibilities for what you can do charitably and the discussions you can have about charitable giving with these clients. And this is my contact info. We'll come back to this, but Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. I think that put a lot in perspective, based on, what we spoke about in the beginning. That's really, really cool stuff. So we have had a couple questions come in, but I'm going to start with a poll. We all like a poll. All right, let's find out what you all think here. So poll is, I'm going to launch it. We'll give you about 20 seconds. What do you believe most often motivates people to give money away? So take a few seconds and let's see what everyone thinks. Don't be shy. Oh, here we come. All right, we're going to Daniel to weigh in here on this one. Oh, we see it changing live. I got very excited with the poll results. All right, finish it up. We've got 13 people have responded. Let's get some more. Tax benefits is not winning, Daniel. What do you think about that?
Well, that's good. I tried to vote, it wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
We have a big-hearted crew on the line today.
Yeah, that's true. So it looks like personal values and beliefs is coming in strong at number 1, with emotional fulfillment and tax benefits tied at second. What do you think about that?
No, I love it. One of the things that I didn't get to talk about before, that when you and Hiram were talking, it was driven home to me. We have seen there's this warm glow, this boost in happiness that occurs in people when they give.
Yeah.
And this is a very human thing. We see it as young as in 2-year-olds, right? 2-year-olds exhibit this. And it shows up not only in people's self-reports, but also in their brain activity. Like the parts of your brain associated with reward are lighting up when you're being charitable. So advisors who go this next step and have these conversations, this is how you knit a client to you for life and take it that extra mile beyond just, asset allocation and planning and sort of the things they're expecting you to talk about. So it's heartening for me to see people thinking that they're doing it for more than a tax benefit, because I think there's value far beyond the tax benefit there.
Mm. Really interesting. So we have a question for you, Daniel. This is coming in from Andrew. We've had a few clients recently that are comfortable with the investments they have, and we're not openly interested in not openly interested is a nice long question. So I want to make sure I don't butcher it. Not openly interested in growing their assets. I feel that this is because they see themselves as already wealthy. We acknowledged their feelings and made the point that we still need to be good stewards, even though they had no big financial goals. How would you address a situation like that in light of today's topic?
Yeah, it seems like it could be one of two things. It seemed like Andrew had a good read on what it is. Off the top of my head, it seems like it could be one of two things. One, it's somewhat rare, but there is a meaningful minority of folks who have negative attitudes about wealth and like think that it is a bad thing to be wealthy. They don't see themselves as that, aspiring to that, and they don't want it. And so for those people, I think this conversation about being charitable, I think is a really good one to say, look, you've built this meaningful nest egg. Let's grow it in a prudent way. And then if you don't want to be wealthy, like let's use that to bless the lives of other people. And I think that's a very different conversation than just more, more, more. The other thing that I could see it being, and maybe it's unstated, is that people understand that there's a relationship between risk and reward, and they don't want to take the risks that are associated with growing that. So I would want to make sure that, I'd want to make sure I was clear on which of those things what it was. But I think today's conversation is if you get a client like that to say, hey, like I have enough, you go, okay, fair enough. But like, let's still be a good steward of this and grow it in a conservative way so that we can bless other people's lives and give you all of the happiness benefits that come with that. Last comment here, another study from the book that I loved, it asked people about their level of financial contentment. And there were two predictors of that, and they were absolutely tied. I mean, they were neck and neck. Like how financially contented are you? One was quite practically how much money do you have, right? So your actual level of wealth was somewhat predictive of that. But equally predictive was how much money are you giving away? So, people at the 95th percentile for wealth nationally may not feel rich if they're not being appropriately charitable. So it really is a 1-2 combination of having enough for your own needs, but also helping support others.
Another quick question before we get to one for Hiram. How do you see the difference or kind of the juggling between leaving money to family members versus something charitable? And how do people tend to separate those? Is that complex? Do people get stressed about, well, am I taking money away from my loved ones to give to charity? Or is that, usually something, how is that usually addressed?
Is that one for me, Ali, or is that for?
Oh, no, for Daniel.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was for Hiram.
No, next up is Hiram, sorry.
Sorry, tell me, you're gonna have to repeat the question. I was waiting
Just
for Hiram to answer.
the complexity between leaving money to family members versus and or charitable kind of charitable investing.
Well, I think that the thing there is to just be clear.
Yeah.
I have seen that get weaponized. That kind of like, look, if you don't fall in line or if you don't act the way that I want you to, like it's going to the church or the university or whatever, and not to you. And I
Mhm.
always think that that's the wrong way to do it. So I just think families should work towards clarity. Again, I write in my books about treating charitable giving the same way that you treat asset allocation. There should be different pieces of the pie. In my family's own charitable giving, we have sort of our number one big ticket charitable items, but then, we want some of it to to go to life-saving stuff like mosquito nets, and we want some of it to go to family, and we want some of it to go to the arts. And I
Right.
think you should diversify. I think that folks should expect that, but I think it's just best to be clear about what that means. It shouldn't be a punishment or a thing to be coercive with.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very awkward conversation, I'm sure. For Hiram, are impact investment options available in your DAF funds?
Yep, absolutely. We have both impact investments that clients or advisors might bring us, and then impact investments that we've sourced all over the world as well. So there's a diverse range, and we'll tailor that to the client however they want to use that.
That's great. I'm going to pop up a slide here that will allow you all to figure out how you might like to contact us. If you have any questions, we can always get into more detail, like Hiram said. So I'm just going to share quickly and then make sure we don't have any additional questions. So, you know, for the Asset Map team, we are always thrilled to connect with you, whether it being about, you know, our typical questions. We have a wonderful sales team. We can talk to you more about the direct client fact finder, or any of the features I didn't have time to go over today. Happy to always connect. Hiram, and the best way for anyone to contact you all is right through you, correct?
Yep.
That's great. And Daniel, I know that the Orion team actually sent over some additional info and a course on advised funds, donor advised funds. So I think you all have something specifically made that works really nicely for this exact webinar.
Yeah. Thanks, Orion team. Looks awesome.
Yeah, the Orion team always knocks it out of the park. So I'm going to check and make sure we don't have any more questions, but I really want to thank everyone for being here today. We're going to make sure that you get access to this event if you want to check it out again, if you missed some of it, or if you want to send it off to a colleague. But really so thrilled to have Daniel and Hiram here today to talk about, you know, some kind of different aspects to investing, because I know we're typically talking about a lot of the same things, and it's nice to hear a different view of it and a nice alternative to work into your conversation. So thank you both for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks to you both.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
See ya.